Hi friends! Today we're talking about another way to make money with goats, grazing for hire. We'll talk about the infrastructure you need and different ways you can use the goat herd you already have to bring in some extra income while grazing your goats for other people to help clear out overgrown forage or mitigate fire risk. I'll talk about our experience grazing for hire, what was challenging, what we loved, and what I think the future holds for this income option. Let's get to it.
Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock.
Hey there! Here's what's happening on the ranch. The biggest news around here is that my oldest daughter, Sage, is back from the wheat harvest job she worked in Montana, and we're all so glad she's home. And especially grateful that she's here to help us get ready for county fair. I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and talk with her yet, but it sounds like she gained some really great experience and knowledge, and she's also very glad to be home. She'll spend the fall working for us building fence and riding for the Grazing Association, gathering and moving cows when she's not busy fencing. I'm busy with weekly farmers market, and that's been fun to get out and meet people and share what we're doing, and then I'm always glad to get back home to the animals and the quiet. We're getting our daily electric fence moves into a pretty good system. With 3 of us, we can get the job done smoothly in about 45 minutes, so that's pretty fast. And if we get going early in the morning, we finish up before it gets hot and the bugs come out. But like everything, that routine will change soon. Once we start getting regular frost at night, we won't be able to move the fence until the frost melts off. It doesn't take much frost to hold those posts securely in the ground, so it's hard to pull them out, and we risk damaging the fence if we get too forceful pulling posts. One of the side benefits of the high-intensity grazing that we're doing right now is that we get the irrigation ditches cleaned out really well for the neighbors. So they don't have to come in with heavy equipment and clean the ditches to keep good water flow, because the goats have already done the job by eating all the grass, weeds, and willows that sprout up in the irrigation ditches. This is an idea you can consider to make extra money with your goats. Not only are they providing a service that you get paid for, but they are also getting their bellies full without you providing the feed. Grazing for hire. Back when we first got goats, we used to set up electric netting and graze vacant lots in town for people, mostly for fire risk mitigation, but also for cosmetic purposes. The goats are experts at cleaning out overgrown shrubs and bushes, as well as eating down the grass and weeds. So how does this work? Basically, you agree to graze an area, what the pay will be, and then you bring your goats to do the work, care for them while they are there, graze it to the level you agreed on, and then you get paid. It can be a nice bonus to the regular sources of income from goats. Many years ago, the going rate was $1 per head per day to have a set-up fence and graze your lot. Considering the current prices of everything, I think $2 per head per day would be reasonable and justifiable, though I don't know what folks are actually charging in the current market. To do this, you need a way to contain them and keep them safe. Electric netting is the best option for small jobs, especially in town. When set up correctly with plenty of power, the goats will respect your fence and stay in, and predators will stay out. And you should probably go ahead and hang up the electric fence warning signs that come with the fence. We grazed a lot in town, and the mayor brought his grandkids to look at the goats and proceeded to reach out and grab the fence. It's a good thing he's a pretty great guy because he got a good shock and could have been upset about it, but he just laughed it off. You need a way to water the goats. On small jobs in town, you can usually just use the local water, but also be prepared to haul water and make sure they have plenty. On bigger jobs away from people, livestock guardian dogs are an option for added protection, but I would only do that in areas where predator risk is high. Make sure it's a dog that respects and stays inside the electric netting, and I personally would not have livestock guardian dogs in town for liability purposes. I know of a few places who graze large areas too big to enclose in electric netting, and they'll use a herder that stays with the goats all the time, as well as livestock guardian dogs and herding dogs. These are usually very large herds of goats doing the grazing. It sounds like a pretty good deal, right? Goats get to graze on feed that's not yours, and you get paid to do it. Maybe too good to be true? Well, there are some drawbacks. The biggest one is time commitment. It takes a lot of time and infrastructure to set up electric netting, haul goats, haul water, check the goats, haul the goats away, and pick up the netting. If you have to travel very far for the grazing job, you may use up all your profits in setup, travel, and takedown. Electric netting itself is an investment, and learning to set it up quickly, tight, and well connected to the Energizer takes some practice. Being able to haul goats to and from grazing jobs in a safe and efficient way is important. If you are grazing does and kids, the kids need to be hauled in a separate compartment in the trailer so they don't get trampled. And then you need to be able to sort them to haul separately again when you're loading back up to leave. Sometimes you don't know what you'll find when you're grazing. One lot in town was where a home had a gas leak and had exploded. Once the goats grazed down the overgrowth, all we could see was broken glass. We were still pretty new to goats, and I was worried they might have eaten some glass, but everything ended up just fine. Ask about any chemicals that have been sprayed on the area, and glance around for plants that may be poisonous to goats. We've never had an issue with either of those things on grazing jobs, but I tend to trust the nutritional wisdom of my goats, and up to this point, they've not gotten sick from eating poisonous plants on a grazing job. I remember one job that had a known toxic plant, and quite a bit of it. When I showed up to check on them, they'd eaten it all, and I was sure they'd be dead by evening. But they didn't even get sick. Maybe that was just luck or good timing, but I tend to trust the instinct of my goats more than my own book knowledge when it comes to that. When your goat numbers are small, say 20 or less, you can fence a small area like a city lot, and the goats can stay there for quite a while. All you have to do is make sure they have water and monitor their progress. That seems to work pretty well. On the other end of the spectrum is very large numbers of goats, hundreds to thousands, and it becomes a full-time job, which could also be quite profitable and enjoyable with the right help and infrastructure. Where it got hard for me was when we had too many goats for small jobs, but not enough to do big jobs. It seemed like the amount of time and work we had to put in for a day or two of grazing wasn't really paying off. Now, depending on your location, you could do this service at a premium price, especially for homeowners that don't want chemical weed control and enjoy watching the goats graze around their property. I also think that grazing fire breaks will continue to see big growth opportunities as a natural way to mitigate fire risk, and I can see a lot of opportunity in this type of grazing for someone who wants to make a living at grazing goats for hire. I enjoyed doing the weed eating jobs, but as our kids got more involved in summer livestock activities and my husband was busy with his job at the time, the work ended up being too much and it wasn't worth it when I didn't have enough help. I think in the future, when our herd size is big enough and our kids are grown, I wouldn't mind doing some more targeted grazing for weed control in rural areas. But I'd want to have a sheep camp and stay with the goats and have herding dogs and the livestock guardian dogs to keep things safe. I think I could really enjoy that. It's the perfect mix of goats, regenerative grazing, and my hermit tendencies. Maybe someday. I hope this episode shows you another way to get profitable raising goats by grazing for hire. It can be a lot of work, but it really suits some people well, and I think it's worth looking into if you think it might be a good fit for you. If you have questions, email Millie at getgoatwise.com or head on over to the community and start a conversation. That's at getgoatwise.com/community, and make sure you're on our insiders list to get weekly updates from the ranch. You can sign up at getgoatwise.com/insider. See you next week.
Hey there. Thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.